measuring tape, as Claire has right here. And we're gonna lay it down and we're gonna figure out, so between all of us, we have to make it reproducible. We have to figure out how long we're gonna make the transect to get the best sample size. We have to figure out like how far out are we going to look. What we're doing is we're gonna be looking for a deer scat, and we're going to guess the population based on the deer scat. And our deer scat is going to be fruit.
So if I have like kiddos, like what would they need to know ahead of time to be able to even have a guess to like what distance that should be?
So it really kind of depends on where you're working. Like working on a bigger open area, it really depends. I mean, you could even do like 10 feet, a few 10 feet in different locations, so you can get different areas. I mean, we chose an area originally over here because there's a bunch of different deer scat. We saw some like really different ones. Choose somewhere maybe under a tree or where there's shrubbery that an animal could actually be scatting, so that they can also have a better.
Well, that goes into bias too.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out, because bias is like the number one thing. So how do we get an accurate population if we're gonna pick something underneath the tree, because that's where they're gonna hang out the most, you know? So that's something that you can bring up to your students. But as Claire said, she brought up a really good point that it depends on the size. So what's gonna be a decent sample size for the area that you are studying? Are we just gonna focus on this one little area over here and just say, okay, we're gonna do the southwest side, and then that's going to be our study area? Or are we going to try and take the entire population to the entire refuge, which is a lot of acres? I mean, our transects will have to be really large, and is that feasible? That's another question that you can ask. Well, if we do 200-meter transect, is that feasible? Are we going to have enough time? Are we going to have enough resources? Like, these are all things that you can bring up. And I mean, there's no right or wrong question, honestly. It's just what you think is going to be the right answer.
Which I think is definitely the hardest.
Yeah.
Parts of like within these methodologies is that you really need to ask the biases. Like if you're mapping stuff, you need to ask the bias of if you're going to map a population of people, are you focusing more on one group of people in a certain rich area versus a lower income area? How's that going to affect the data? Is it actually going to represent the population as a whole within what you're looking at? So when you're doing it, you're definitely asking yourself these questions, and that's why we're just gonna throw you into it a little. So like when you're doing it, then we'll have like a little discussion of like answering some of these and what you think was reasonable based off of, you're going to choose a length, and then how do you measure
do you think, yeah, and then we'll have a discussion about it. Is this okay? Is this how do you think that you guys did? We're kind of like, we're directing you, but you guys are going to be doing the activities.
If I was just a kid and they're looking at it, it's like, if you're making transects, where are you looking at the poop? Is it right next to the transects? If you're like here in the transects right here and you see one over there, are you counting that? Is that like being biased towards it? Is it out of your data zone? You just stay within the data zone.
So to some extent, the data kind of tells you what your size is, because you don't want to have it's 1 and then 2 and then 1 and then 3. You want to have big enough numbers, so you may have, you know, different sizes to get enough, so it's not just 1 and 2.
One group is going to do a transect, and then the other group is going to do a transect, and then we'll come together and we'll discuss about how each of the groups did.